What it do, guys? It is your boy, Leon Mookie here, back to you with another new fanfic for you guys. And this is one I have been looking forward to being doing in a long time now since I had the concept for it. I mean, mainly ever since I started playing Xenoblade Chronicles X Definitive Edition. This is Code Geass X, a Code Geass and Xenoblade Chronicles X story. Honestly, I wanted to do this sooner than later, but I wanted to make sure to get as many scales as I could for the story after all, and wanted to give at least that of more, customization. However, I kind of found out that when it comes to the scales, the customization isn't through that of its parts or that of the machines itself. It's mainly through that of all of the goddamn weaponry. There are so many weapon types that can customize and make scales and make them seem unstoppable that it's hard to basically make the perfect one, especially given the added new scales and weapons in that of the definitive edition of X. I will let you guys know this now. I still haven't finished Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I still haven't got all the scales and weapons. So I'm basically working on that of, basic weapons and gear that you can get by leveling up and all that. Since mainly all the most powerful weapons come from that of gathering materials and beating certain types of tyrant monsters. Not to mention some of the materials that can be gathered by using that of material tickets. So because of this story may be a slow burn starting out. But when I get to that of Season 2 and when I finally fully beat Xenoblade Chronicles X and gain all the scales and weapons, then this story is going to be smoothing along pretty quickly. So yeah, at any rate, with all that said, let's get into this, shall we guys? Chapter 0, Prologue, The Prince in the System. Lelouch Lamperouge, or rather, his original name, before many unfortunate events began to happen to him. Lelouch v. Britannia, 17th prince in line to the throne, or formerly was the 17th prince in line to the throne. A tall, black-haired young man with purple eyes. He goes by that of many names through multiple realities. Zero, the Devil Emperor, the Revolutionary, the Usurper, a hero, and a villain. However, this version of Lelouch v. Britannia is different, mainly because of one thing. One cosmic level entity decide to give pity to that of this lone anti-hero, hoping to basically understand and not stray from the path that he always forced on, to not be a prisoner of fate, to not be somebody tied down through that of the past, if move forward with a better future, but not to give up his life for that future though. 1.5 years before the events of Code Geass began in the main timeline, Lelouch Lamperouge, a 15-year-old coming up to that of 16 actually, gained that of a mysterious item, or rather, mysterious power that came to him. It was started out as that of a normal day, like any other, going to Ashford Academy, keeping his identity secret of him being the exiled prince, always looking after his little sister Nanali alongside that of their caretaker, Sayako, going to the school alongside that of his friends, Millie Ashford and Rivels, alongside that of a quiet, but not really close girl with that of Lelouch being Nina Einstein. The reason why this day isn't as normal is because of one thing. Once he woke up, he keeps seeing this screen floating in front of him, and always in that of his eyesight, no matter what he does. With Lelouch seeing this, trying his best to get out of his vision, blink multiple times, but yet it does nothing, before finally taking a better look at it. Within him reading it saying, "Congratulations, Lelouch v. Britannia. Out of the multiple dozens and variants of you all across that of the multiverse, you are chosen for that of the scale system." With Lelouch wondering on what the hell even is the scale system. Within the text switching, saying, "You may be wondering what the hell even is the scale system. Well, I'll let you know, former prince." Hearing this, Lelouch couldn't help but be shocked the fact that something knows about him being a prince, but then realized to try and keep his, shock and surprise down, given that he's literally hallucinating, so this could just be a figment of his imagination and mind playing tricks on him, and the stress finally hitting him. Within the message saying, "And you may be wondering this is a figment of your imagination, you're hallucinating from the stress. Trust me, dude, you're not. This is all too real." Within, Lelouch's eyes widening in shock as the text continues saying, "Scales are basically mechs, not similar to that of nightmare frames like you are basically aware of, and that your mother used to pilot. No, in fact, scales are basically machines from a whole other universe. A lot more bigger, and just as agile as that of nightmare frames. However, unlike that of nightmare frames, which are simple and have barely any customization outside of specifically made and tailored nightmare frames in your world, scales are easily customizable and can be adjusted to that of your piloting style, to be honest. So, even that of a common variety and mass-produced scale can basically be customizable to that of the same level as special made and highly performance next generation nightmare frame." Cool, huh? Within, hearing this, Lelouch couldn't help but be shocked, saying, This can't be real, can it?" But then he continues saying, "The scales are basically allowing you to have access to all forms of scales, even able to create your very own scales to make them even more powerful. However, you'll have to basically earn to create your very own scales, which you'll have to do by doing certain achievements and doing certain tasks, which, knowing you'll be able to achieve pretty easily. But if you will basically surprise me, unlike that of the multiple versions of you in the multiverse, then I may give you some special stuff added to your system outside of the scales. Just try not to disappoint me, Lelouch v. Britannia." Within hearing that, Lelouch can help but feel like he's basically being, mocked for this. Before then, he could say something. It continues saying, I'll start you off with that of the very first common variety scale that is given to you in Xenoblade Chronicles X. A US 0230 Ubre ST, a run-of-the-mill and basic scale that anybody can pilot when starting out when getting their, scale license. And, lucky for you, you don't need one, Lelouch. Unlike those in that of X, unfortunately. But knowing you better not basically take any chances when using the scale. You can materialize it anytime you wish. Summon it up in broad daylight if you want. Even start driving it across that of the Tokyo settlement if you feel like it. But knowing you like to be that of secretive and like to keep things, private, to be honest. So, best chance for you to understand this scale a lot better, best to drive it down in that of the abandoned subways of the Tokyo settlement in the ghettos. Or possibly maybe go in the outskirts of the Tokyo settlement and figure out how to pilot it there. After all, it's all up to you, Lelouch. So, once I give you these words, the system is all yours. Just try not to disappoint me, or, matter of fact, if you really still believe that this is all that of a, dream, figment of your imagination, how about that I tell you this, for a little incentive. Within, Lelouch couldn't help but raise an eyebrow and somewhat shocked, saying, "Incentive? What kind of incentive?" As soon the text appears, saying, "Your mother is alive, and the one who tried to kill her is a man who goes by the name V2, or his original name, Vincent Z. Britannia, your uncle, your father's twin brother, who has been controlling things behind the scenes. Not even your father has any control over him, as he always says that it's in the name of them achieving their goal. In a way, Your father is just as much of a victim of your uncle's machinations than just that of your mother and you and your sister. Hearing all that, Lelouch couldn't help but feel like a pit just formed in his stomach. Hearing this, or rather, reading this, just makes him feel unnerved. He can't, part of him doesn't believe it. Hell, part of him refuses to believe it. How can he? His father had siblings, but they all died during that of the era of blood. It's how he was able to basically take the throne. But what if, this is also him, his father. If he does have a brother, no. If he does have a uncle who's been causing things behind the scenes, doing things against everybody, possibly the reason behind the suffering, he wouldn't put it past him. He wouldn't put it past Britannia to basically keep a secret like this. He wouldn't put it past his father to basically keep his brother safe for all this time and throw their mother under the bus. But yet, it says that his mother is alive, that she's not dead. With it, as Lelouch is coming to grasp with this, thinking that it's a lie, like there's no way that his mother survived, as she died protecting Nonali. But then, thinking, wait, now I think about it, why was Nonali even there? As then, parts of memories and gaps within Lelouch's mind began to basically flash, remembering basically tucking in Nonali himself back in the Via, like she wouldn't even be up. Not to mention, even if it wasn't only a glimpse, he remembers a glimpse about something that Cornelia said, that all the personal guards of Marianne were to leave by order by her. Didn't think much about it, but now it's starting to come to realization. But then, Lou saying, so that means, what's going on? I felt these gaps in my memory. I feel like I'm on the course of understanding something, but I just can't. But then, Lelouch grabbing his head saying, damn it, what's going on here? As Lelouch trying to figure this out, but then saying, so, I gave you what you wanted. Now you have an incentive to try and use this system to your best content, to find the secret about that of your mother, on why your mother is alive, to know about that your uncle, and finally put an end to Britannia's scheming. I can't give you all the answers, you're gonna have to figure things out yourself after all. But you're a bright kid, you'll figure things out as time goes on. Now then, get to busy. You got a skill to start figuring out how to pilot. Oh, and I know you suck at basically piloting nightmares, and you rather prefer to have others do all the heavy lifting, but I guess you better start learning on how to pilot a scale properly. Trust me, you're gonna need it. Within soon, from sincerely, Soul, the multiverse watcher of your universe. As then, he couldn't help but realize Soul. Within, the screen finally disappears within soon, showing that of the very scale that Lelouch is given, as it's basically a white scale with that of, blue and red markings on it. Within, as Lelouch basically just thinks about it, as soon it goes into that of its weapon layout, and within, seeing that of each area where you can basically give that of the scale weapons, from that of its right back, left back, shoulder, left shoulder, right forearm, left forearm, and right-handed, left-handed, and also on that of the right waist and left waist are basically two weapons, one being that of a M210 SA sword and a R330 SA assault rifle, as the sword is on that of its right hip of the scale and the assault rifle on the left hip of the scale. But then Lelouch wondering, this can't be real. It looks like a nightmare frame, but the design, the way the pattern, everything else, It's completely different from your everyday average nightmare frame. It almost looked, not to mention, within finding out that the Ubren actually is a common variety scale, almost similar to that of a Glasgow. Within realizing this, saying, seriously? He basically gave me an outdated model. Of course. Why would I get something perfect and better? I'm always given hand-me-downs, even when it came to that of the royal family. Within, coming through the door, as it being Sayako, the Japanese maid of the Ashford, saying, Master Lelouch, why are you still in bed? I would expect you to already get out already. Saying, right. Just give me a minute. Within, saying, of course, you don't need to rush, but just be punctual, young master. Within, closing the door. Within, Lelouch realizing she couldn't see it. She couldn't see this screen right in front of me? Is it possible that the only people that can see it is myself? Realizing this, Lelouch saying, maybe. Is this still a figment of my imagination? If it is so, I might need to figure this out myself. A look of determination and wanting to solve this, he gets on his school uniform, eats his breakfast with that of his little sister Nonali, heads to that of classes. As the day goes by, he does his usual routine, dodging out of gym classes, barely listening in class, even though he still has that of high marks, and would have basically asked Rivels to drive him to, the settlement, and mainly into that of the noble district, so he could scam nobles into betting all their money during a chess match, but deciding not to, wanting to figure out about that of this scale thing. Normally, he would also do his duties as one of the newest members of the student council, given that Millie forced him into that of the student council. But right now, he'd rather deal with that of an irate and annoyed Millie than not figure out what the hell this thing is. Given that Ashford actually does have a way under that of the, Tokyo settlement into that of the old Tokyo subway system. It was a way, just in case anything bad happened to the school, that students can leave the school through that of the old subway and head further and further deeper into the subway before heading to that of one of the ghettos. There, they'll head straight back into the settlement just in case. It was honestly been forgotten about. However, Lelouch ended up finding out about this quite a bit of a while, ever since coming to Ashford. Thought it could be useful to basically have a quiet place in case he needed to. But now it's kind of perfect. Then, seeing a pretty wide open area within the subway, saying, this should do. Then thinking about that of the menu, as then soon materializing in front of him, showing that of his scale, before then saying, how do I basically bring this thing out anyway? Just what do I need to do to just come out, or just think about it coming within soon? As soon as Lelouch thought about just materializing out, that's when, in a burst of data from that of ones and zeros, that's soon when Lelouch's scale basically materialized, but already kneeling down for a person to basically go inside that of the cockpit. Within, Lelouch seeing this, saying, whoa, this is... Within, realizing, holy crap, this thing is far more bigger than that of a nightmare frame just by it bending down. Even if a nightmare frame basically bends down, it only would go down to that of its chest, and it would be taller than it, but not by much, even while this thing is bent down. Within, looking at that of the cockpit seat, within realize, would this thing even fit me? Thinking that it looks pretty small, as he basically tries to get in. However, he barely has any upper arm strength at all, and struggles a few times to even get into that of the, cockpit. After his third attempt, he finally does. Within realizing, did not think it would be hard to get into a freaking cockpit, even while it's kneeling down. Within realizing there actually is a seat and at least a little bit of room. As soon as he gets into the seats, that's when the hatch closes, saying, "Wait! I didn't mean to." Within, in that of a bright bluish hum, that's when the sensor display finally appears within it, saying, "Loading system, operating system fully untacked." Activating that of sensor beret. Within, seeing that of system checks going over and over, saying, "Confirm." Holographic display full 360 huddle display fully materialized. Within, as Lelouch sees this, he can basically see his entire surroundings around him, from that of up, down, forward, and backwards as well, showing that the cockpit has fully autonomy and control over that of the scale, saying, "Wow, this is amazing. Not even nightmare frames have this much of a spatial awareness." With Lelouch basically coming to this realization, he could help but get at least a little bit hype about this. Within him trying figuring out that of the controls, within the scale begins to finally stand up. Within realizing that the scale is quite tall, to the point that's quite even taller than that of the, subway actually, as he couldn't basically go all the way up before, as if he does, he could start a cave-in and could cause a little bit of destabilization, saying, "This is not gonna work." Within realizing, how can I, looking around, he soon notices that of a, transformation system. Within, Lelouch saying, "A transformation system? Mobile vehicle form?" Within, going to that of trying to figure out how to basically get to it, as he jiggles around with that of the controls before finally getting to it, saying, "There we go." Within, as soon doing so, the scale fully transforms into that of its transformation form, which is basically a two-wheeled vehicle. Within realizing, wait, a two-wheeled vehicle? How the hell does this even work? Within him going a little bit forward, realizing, okay, take this one step at a time. If I do this, I should be able to figure things out a little bit easier. With it, as driving through that of the subway a little bit, as he couldn't help but basically floor at least a little bit of it. Within realizing, okay, maybe I can get a handle of this. Once I get to that of a subway stop, I'll head back to that of Ashford and figure out what I'm going to do next afterwards. Within, that's when, as soon Lelouch basically finally arrives at that of a, abandoned subway station, within underground subway station, within realizing, noticing that there are actually a few people there, as they look like 11s, and not only that, through that of the sensor, they look afraid. Within realize, 11s? It wouldn't make sense. Of course. Even though there are some housings still intact, not a lot of them are. Figure some people would need to basically live down here to survive too. Possibly kids, maybe? Within, Lelouch stopping a little bit and deciding to get out of the scale. Within, trying his best to basically hoist himself out of that of the scale, once again struggling quite a bit due to his lack of upper arm strength. Within, going to his systems before then saying, "Dematerialize scale." With doing so, dematerialize that of his scale, and decide to head to Ashford back on foot instead, which is going to be a pain, but even so, better that than having to make people suffer. But then, soon after that, that's when he noticed something on that of the system saying, "Achievement for being courteous and kind and self-aware of your actions. You have gained that of 50 points. Within, Lelouch saying, 50 points? Within, a notification appears saying, "Points allow you to basically gain that of weapons and also common variety skills in that of the shop. As you continue to basically achieve goals and deeds, you'll have more and more access to to more powerful skills and weapons. And and once again, like I said, if you can surprise me, you'll have access to be able to create your own very own personal scales outside of just customizing regular, common variety, mass-produced scales. Within hearing that, Lelouch couldn't help but realize, so just being a good person or being aware of my actions and surroundings to do better is how I gain these points. If so, then realizing what he's been doing at that of Ashford, that he's been avoiding people, not doing anything properly, basically acting like that of a stereotypical loner, and yet, even though it's because of this that he has quite a bit of girls basically pining for him, mainly due to his good looks and his mysterious nature. At first, he only did this and act like this to not draw any attention towards him, but instead it has even more than what he originally wanted. But then realizing, so I guess I better start doing things that are basically against my nature if I want to get these points and figure out how to do with this scales anymore. Am I right? But then not say anything. However, if that of the so-called soul entity basically appeared, he would basically say, "Bingo, Prince Boy." But then Lelouch thinking, how am I able to already understand a disembodied voice, personality, when I haven't even met them? With that, Lelouch now has a new drive outside of wanting to wipe out and obliterate Britannia for the good of the world, and for his goal of making a kind and caring world. With that, Lelouch basically heads back to Ashford, and just like expected, he did gain that of an earful from Millie. I mean, of course, the reason on why she brought him onto that of the student council was mainly because of his skills with that of math, finances, and also to help her with that of festivals after all. And let's just say he's used to it, but quite annoyed. After that, Lelouch has spent his time doing the same thing, but decided to do a little bit of differences here and there. He's still somewhat of aloof and not as, sociable as he always is. However, he does start doing that of, gym actually, and start taking his exercising more seriously. At first, the first time he even tried doing this, he nearly felt like he was about to die, and still feels like this to this day after all. But yet, he still keeps pushing through, pushing on more and more. Not to mention, he even outside of his, extracurricular activities, he even took up that of engineering and understanding machinery, especially when it comes to that of nightmare frames. Just because this scale was basically given to him also means that he needs to figure out some ways to figure out maintenance. Actually, when basically studying and looking up that of the materials for the scale, it also says that scales do take fuel, but being a little bit lenient, scales can regain fuel by charging when not being used. But Lelouch isn't the kind of person to basically, wait on such an inefficient method to refill that of his machine after all, and wants to figure out some ways to make that of his own fuel, which there was actually a tutorial guide for that of the system on that of making fuel, saying that securite and also other forms of energy can work as that a substitute for that of fueling a scale. It would just be recycled and processed into that of the fuel that scales actually need to work after all. So yeah, nothing too bad actually, and it makes things a little bit easier for Lelouch. But even so, while basically changing up his schedule and his routine and everything else, while still doing the same old too, working for that of Millie and the student council, going to basically take money from that of nobles from chess matches, and so on and so forth. He's finally gained that of plenty points from doing so. Hell, he actually gains more points from just doing exercises. More of a shock as the system just say that Lelouch Lamperouge would never work out in a day of his life. He's too much of a whiny, scrawny ass bitch. Just hearing that alone, for some reason, basically led to Lelouch wanting to prove himself that he can, which in doing so, ended up changing his body type a little bit. He's still, on the surface level, he still looks pretty scrawny, but if you basically remove his school uniform, he is starting to define at least a little bit of muscle here and there. As for him piloting a scale, instead of basically going to that of the subways, he decides to head to that of certain abandoned ghettos, actually. There are still people living in them, but the most, unstable and most unusable ghettos is where Lelouch decides to try and, do that of his, to figure out how to pilot a scale better. And let's just say it is trial and error. Let's just say Lelouch basically crashes into buildings a few times here and there, especially in vehicle mode, because he not only he doesn't have a scale license, he also doesn't have his driving license too. Let's just say he wrecks the scale a few times. Thankfully, the scales are pretty damn durable, so it can handle quite a bit of, a few, crashes and bumps and scrapes here and there after all. But even so, it's not going to be easy for Lelouch to get a better handle of how to pilot a freaking scale pretty easily. However, on his way back to Ashford after another piloting session in his scale, he ended up basically seeing Nina, wondering on why she's at a ghetto, as he was just about to basically, ignore her and basically head back to Ashford. He's soon noticing that of a few people basically harassing her. However, these people are Japanese, or now known by 11s. As for the reason on why they're harassing, as Nina only came here to basically explore that of the ghetto, wanting to get parts for that of a project that she's working on. However, the Japanese, on the other hand, aren't wanting that. If anything, they're more pissed and angry that she's even here to begin with, as this ruined and basically desolate city is all they have left, all that they were given them by that of Britannia. And seeing somebody basically thinking that they have the right to walk around here, especially like her, just as pisses them off. But then one of them basically grabbed Nina, as one of them say, Britannia took everything away from us. Why don't we do the same to her and to them? But then Nina couldn't help but scream. However, Lelouch, in one moment, he doesn't know why, but his body just moved on its own without warning. But then him going to that of the 11s, punching one of them in the face, knocking them off ground, while then heading to the one grabbing onto that of Nina's arm, before then punching him in the gut. At that very moment, he grabbed Nina as well and ran forward back to that settlement. But then one of them say, "Get back here, you damn Britannian bastards! We'll fucking kill you!" With Lelouch wondering, why the hell did I do this? But then Nina realized, Lelouch? Less talking, more running. Within them running as fast as they can, with both of them finally arrived back at the settlement, but now completely out of breath. Within, Lelouch couldn't help but basically sigh in that of annoyance and that of frustration, saying, "Damn it, why the hell did I even do that? More the fact, why did I even save her? It's not like it matters." But then she's saying, Lelouch, "Look, Nina, I know that we're not really that close, or the only reason that we're even somewhat acquaintances is mainly due to that of Millie. So for that, I want to apologize for saying, no, thank you." Within, Lelouch saying, "You're welcome." As then, without warning, Millie couldn't help but basically blush at that of Lelouch, blushing the fact that somebody that she didn't even think much about, and that she didn't even think actually, aware of her even existing, actually just saved her, just like that, without even wanting a reward or, reprobations for even stepping in at all. And because of that, she can't help but basically blush, now looking at the back of Lelouch. But then, the system screen appears saying, "Achievement, gain the affection of Nina Einstein." 150 points, saying, "Wait, seriously?" Within the system saying, "Yeah, seriously. Good luck with your own personal stalker now." With Lelouch couldn't help but have that of a twitching eyebrow saying, What the hell did it mean by that?" As Lelouch wouldn't know until that of a few months later on what the system meant by personal stalker. At the same time, while coming back from basically taking on some nobles with that of Rebels, while looking like he's reading a book, he's looking through over the system, he soon noticed that of a noble basically harassing that of a commoner for messing up something and for basically attaching something to that of for either his car or something else. Within seeing this, Lelouch couldn't help but basically sign of annoyance, jumping out of that of the sidecar from that of Rebels' bike, heading over to that of a tow truck, putting it onto that of the noble's car, and as soon as the tow truck left, that's when the noble's car was dragged along with it. At the same time, that's when everyone's favorite girl, Shirley, noticed this too, and at that very moment, she was smitten with that of Lelouch, and became that of a, side member of the student council, even though she's mainly part of the swimming club. While still figuring out that of his skill, he also began figuring out other ways of understanding skill through that of nightmare, frames after all, by studying books on nightmare frames. Several books mainly revolve around that of two geniuses. One revolves around that of the Earl of Pudding and somebody that Lelouch knows from his past, Lloyd Osbloom, a genius when it comes to that of nightmare frame development. However, he doesn't really make any true contributions to nightmare frames outside of making personal custom models, which he barely even does because he always goes overboard when making them. Last time he heard that, he became a member of and retainer for his older brother, Prince Sneasel, and became part of his Camelot division. However, the other person that he found out about that is also in charge of known for making that of nightmare frames is named Dr. Rakshasha, an Indian woman who only got into that of nightmare design frames in recently, and was originally known for basically medicine and also that of cybernetics as well. When looking over her research and that of her books as well, you find out that hers is more of the basic and exactly what Lelouch is looking for. Not only she's known for basically making that of nightmare frames for not just everybody, but also nightmare frames for that of special people too. Mainly nightmare frames that can basically enhance that of the wielder who has that of great talent and control, which is exactly on what he needs to figure out for that of his skill. Not to mention, he's already starting to figure out what to already upgrading it through all the points and changes he's been doing to himself as well. Hell, he's even started working out a lot more too. At first, he hated it and mainly just did it just to gain points. But now, for some reason, he actually likes doing it too. Unfortunately, it also gave him another fan club of girls too, outside of just him and his good looks and his cold demeanor. Not to mention, it has also worried Millie as well too, alongside that of Nonelite as well. Had to make an excuse that he's just doing it to finally, look after his health after all. To put the nail in the coffin so they won't worry anymore, he even asked if Rivals wants to join him for that of his workouts. And let's just say Rebels was on board first half, but after that, not again. Which supplemented his reasoning for working out now for points. But speaking of putting those points in, he's gave that of his skill that of certain weapon types. However, he doesn't just want to basically give it all types of weapons. When he tried doing that the first time, like giving it certain ways to counteract other stuff, it worked. It gives him that of an overwhelming advantage in power, but let's just say it leaves his skill completely open, and in case he needs to switch to that of different weapon types, it makes it slow and makes the scale a little bit slower to basically switch to them pretty quickly. The less weapons bogging down that of the scale, the better in his case. With these books from that of Rakshasha, he should be able to figure out different ways to improve that of his scales combat abilities. And such, after a few months, it's finally improved. To the point that he figured out ways to improve that his scale combat is a lot more better. It's not that of master level, which he still needs to practice on, but at least it's decent. When coming back from that of training with his scale and heading back to that of student council house before heading to his room, however, he meets a certain person that he did not expect to meet when coming back, as his being Millie. But then, Lelouch saying, "Can I help you, Millie? You normally don't even spend time being here. You would already probably head back to that of the dorms by now." Saying, "Honestly, Lelouch, we need to talk. It's stuff that's quite important. It's about you, actually." But then, Lelouch realizing, "Damn it. I figures as much. Due to my drastic changes, Millie would be figuring things out too." But then, Millie heading into that of his room with only just out of the two of them, the two childhood friends, all alone and out of pure silence. But then Lelouch saying, "You're the one that asked to meet with me, so you think you could," as then being cut off by that of Millie saying, "Lelouch, tell me, what has happened to you? What has gotten into you?" Then, Lelouch completely shocked by that of the outburst. Within Lelouch saying, "I have no idea what you're asking." Within Millie saying, "Lelouch, I've known you ever since we were kids. My grandfather supported you and your mother back when you and Nonali were still that of part of the Britannian Imperial family. I know when something is up. So please, Lelouch, be honest with me. What has gotten into you?" Within hearing that, Lelouch couldn't help but basically sigh before realizing, I shouldn't be surprised. Of course, she would figure out some things that were pretty much off. Before then, Lelouch couldn't help but sigh, saying, "Is it weird that people would change over time, Millie?" Within saying, "Not as drastic as you have." Within, Lelouch getting annoyed, saying, "And what the hell is that supposed to mean?" Within, Millie also having that of an annoyed and angered face, saying, "You started working out more. Not only mentioned, you also taken out that of other physical activities like that of engineering and mechanic work, part of the other clubs. You're constantly sneaking around that of the school and leaving and going around and who knows where. At first, I figured that it was just you going to take on nobles outside without rivals, but now I'm not even so sure anymore. I also need to bring up the fact that you also helped that of Nina when she was nearly assaulted by that of the 11s in one of the ghettos. Last time I've seen, she hasn't basically stopped looking at you, and every time when she does, she's always blushing. I wouldn't mind her having a little crush on you." Within, Lelouch realizing, oh god, she really does. She really is my stalker. How the hell am I going to have to deal with this? Within, Nina continues going on saying, "But you still act like you, few at a time, even with all of this extra stuff. So please, Lelouch, tell me, are you in trouble? Are you basically sorry to do other stuff, or are you," within thinking, "are you planning on joining that of the Britannian military to basically try and take down Britannia from the inside, to get vengeance on that of your family?" Within hearing this, Millie, where the hell is this coming from? Saying, "Tell me the truth, Lelouch." She's standing up from that of Lelouch's chair, within saying, "We have been friends for so long. Not to mention, grandfather and I are basically keeping you safe here, not out of obligation or basically a way to get back into that of nobility by turning you in. We want you here, want you and Nonali here because we care about you. We worry about you. We could care less outside of my mother on basically regaining our nobility title." Within, basically going to that of one knee and holding that of Lelouch's left hand with that of both her hands, saying, we just worry about you both. I worry about you. So please, tell me, what is going on with you?" Within, hearing this, Lelouch couldn't help but realize, outside of Suzaku, I forgot that Millie always looked out for me too. And Nonali, I've been so holed up in trying to figure out this whole entire system, piloting my scale, and preparing for my vengeance against Britannia, that I completely forgot about her and everything she's done for me. Especially on what that of old man Ruben has been doing for me and Nonali. I've been taking them for granted. But then, realizing this, Lelouch can help but say, you have the right to know, Millie. So that's why I need you to try and please keep this a secret. If I show you this, you can't tell anyone. And I mean anyone. Within hearing that, Millie couldn't help but say, of course, anything, Lelouch. Within, Lelouch getting up from his bed, as then saying, come on, there's only one place where I can show you this. Within, after that, Millie basically also follows after Lelouch. After a while, they finally head to that of the underground abandoned subway tunnels. Within, Lelouch bringing up that of the scale menu before materializing his urban as well. With it, and that's of all kneel down, ready for that of Lelouch to enter inside of the scale. Within, Millie seeing this saying, what the, is that a nightmare frame? Within, Lelouch looking back at his childhood blonde-haired friend. Unfortunately, no, it's not. It's called a scale. Saying, wait, a scale? I've never heard a machine like that. Saying, figures, because it's not even from this world. Within, Millie saying, what do you mean by that? As looking back at that of the blonde, within him explaining everything about this system, about what's given to him, about his task on trying to figure out how to pilot its work and basically figure out how the scale even is properly used. And how when he does, and when he finds the perfect opportunity, he plans to strike and take down Britannia once and for all. Within hearing that, Millie can help but say, so you really are serious. You really plan on basically taking on Britannia all by yourself if you have to. Within, Lelouch looking down saying, not if I have to. If I can find people that are actually willing to work with me, or if I have to manipulate others to work with me, then I'll do it. If not, then within, Millie basically saying, you're such an idiot. You always do stuff like this. Think 3 steps ahead, but without thinking about that of the things in between. Within, Lelouch realizing this saying, the hell are you? Before then, she's saying, you're really dead set on this, aren't you? No matter what. Or even what I say, saying, what else is there? Within, Millie basically crossing her arms around that of her ample chest. Before then saying, fine, then I'll help you. Within, saying, what? Within, she's saying, I'll help you. Within, Lelouch saying, Millie, this isn't for debate either. I'm doing this mainly so I can look after you for Nonali's sake. Not just for yours. Not to mention, I'll also try and convince you that there are other ways to basically take down Britannia for the greater good, outside of just destroying everything that it stands for. But until we find that, I'll help you out any way I can. Within hearing that, Lelouch saying, Millie. Before then, going over to that Lelouch and hugging him. Within saying, I'm always here for you and Nonali. Especially for you, Lulu. Within hearing that, the nickname that she always used to call Lelouch back then when they were kids. Within realize, thanks, Mills. Even calling her by that nickname too. However, little did the two know, they had somebody also hearing in on their conversation. That being Nina. With Nina shocked about this, and even finding out that Lelouch is also part of the Imperial family, making him a prince, which also led to her having a change and a resolve as well. With now the months now going by, and Lelouch beginning his second year at Ashford, now being 17 years old, he had enough points to finally fully customize one of the scale, not to mention gain that of 2 other new scales as well, and customize them too. However, his first scale, on the other hand, the one that he first gained, he upgraded and improved by giving it new weaponry and renaming it from that of its basic model, now calling it the Zero, a black scale, switching out that of the sword with that of a combat knife actually, and switching out that of the assault rifle for a sniper rifle. Added that with 2 back weaponry, one being a missile launcher pods and the other being that of a plasma cannon, while on the shoulders, one being a Gatling gun on the left and a Buster sword, plasma sword on the right, as he would have that of a great, switch between that of long range, close range, and mid-range combat when fighting using this scale, as this is the scale that the world will find out when a certain individual takes the scene and changes the world off its head. That individual will be Lelouch, or rather, Zero. And that's it. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please tell me what you guys think in the comments below, guys. Love to read them. So, how did you guys like this prologue prequel chapter? This is basically the setup chapter on how, Lelouch gained that of his system for the scales. And honestly, this Lelouch is going to change quite a bit. He'll still be that of the same snarky and always sarcastic Lelouch, and basically is still going to be that of a strategist, making plans and everything. However, he's also going to be fighting on the front lines. Seriously, he always talks about if a king doesn't lead from the front, how is he a leader? He always says that, but he barely fights on that of the front lines entirely. He's mainly being the one always protected though. So in this way, he's going to be having to learn how to protect himself and others at the exact same time, outside of just making strategies and plans. Also, if you guys are wondering, no, Lelouch will not be on the same level as a pilot like that of Suzaku and Kallen. At least, not yet. Give it at least that of a few more chapters and maybe he'll be on their level. But as of now, he's basically on the border of basically surpassing that of mundane pilots, basically cannon fodder, and that of the super named pilots that basically have that of true combat skill like that of, Tada or Cornelia. So basically like on their level, to be honest. Also, you may be wondering, why am I bringing in that of, Millie and Nina in this after all? Well, besides them being that of a small little harem and given that of Lelouch, I always hated the fact that Millie was seen as that of a, not really involved with that of Lelouch when it comes to being Zero. She was one of Lelouch's childhood friends. Her family has basically looked after Lelouch and Nonali ever since Japan basically was taken over and turned into Area 11, and yet Lelouch has lied and manipulated them for so long, and yet I get it. The whole point of the student council was supposed to show that it's a form of Lelouch who can basically just be himself outside of worrying about being the revolutionary Zero and corruption and everything. But I still like the fact that Lelouch, that Suzaku was basically more trusting than that of Millie of all people, who has kept the secret about Lelouch and Nonali being at Ashford all this time and alive too. So yeah, Millie is going to be part of Lelouch's inner circle as this series goes on. As for Nina, I just needed to make sure to keep the psycho chick in check in some way or another. This was the only way I can think of. So yeah, if you hate it, I am sorry. Anyways, if you guys like this, please like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell notification key to date my videos upload to the channel. Also, please check out my Discord, my gaming channel, my main channel, my other channel, my Patreon, my Cash App, and my PayPal. I'll link in the description below if I'm not too lazy to do so. So, with all that said, this is Leon Mookie, signing out. Later guys, and hope you all take care.